The liquid culture.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of The Liquid Culture with me, Mitchell Chirac. Today, we're in my home, in my dining room, bars behind me, Murph's here. Today, wanted to bring you to the house, talk to you a little bit about wine decanting. Reason we're in the house, most of my decanters are here, most of the wine that I drink is done here, so wanted to bring you to the house and talk a little bit about decanting. So, why do we decant wine? I know a lot of people, the reason that you don't drink wine is probably because there's these barriers to entry. It seems confusing. All of these tools, gadgets, rules, it's too crazy. You don't want to get into it. Decanting is real simple. The reason that people started decanting wine was because there was a lot of sediment in the bottles they were ordering at restaurants that they were keeping at their homes. They wanted to not have to gnaw on their wines whenever they drank them, filter that sediment out. They started pouring them into glass carafes that looked good and also took care of separating that sediment from the wine. Today, that is still a reason why we decant wine, but another reason why we decant wine, and a more important reason in my opinion that we decant wine, is because getting air to wine, it helps to shed some things off of it so that we can really taste some of the nuances. You know, wine can be like that girlfriend that you've had that or boyfriend that you've had who you can tell that there's something that they need to get off their chest, right? They need to vent, they need to get something off of their chest, and as soon as they get it all out, they're very ready to go. They're pleasant. You can really conversate with them. Things just move a lot smoother when they've gotten that whatever it was they needed off of their chest. Wine's the same way. Some wines, they're a little tight. That's something that you'll hear a lot. Wines are a little tight. They need to open up. They need to loosen up a little bit. And decanting the wines can do that. Getting some air to them, you'll see people swirl the glass. It gets the oxygen in there. You'll hear, especially me, when I'm tasting wine, you'll hear me get a little oxygen in whenever you're taking a sip. Adding air to wine, the right amount of air to wine, really helps for the wines to show their full complexity. So let's get into a little bit about different types of decanters. So I've got a few here. Let's start with some of the basic styles. So here in front of me, you'll see two very basic decanter styles. You've probably seen these before. Might see them at somebody's house or in a restaurant. These are very basic decanters. This one is the one that I've had for the longest. Super basic decanter, really nice tapered neck, nice wide bowl at the bottom. This is a decanter that I've decanted many bottles of wine in. This is my current kind of go-to decanter. It's a decanter that I've had not as long as this other one, but have definitely decanted many bottles of wine in this guy. Both of these decanters do a great basic job of getting air to the wine. Pour a bottle in. Each bottle, I would say a regular standard bottle probably comes up to about here on this decanter and about here on this decanter. So what you're doing is you're pouring the wine in, and all of this leftover space is just air that's getting down to the wine, that's helping the wines breathe. You'll hear that term a lot. Help the wines breathe and really loosen up. So, two very standard. This one has a little punt in the bottom. Again, kind of helps to get that wine moved around a little bit, and that's that. So, basic decanters here. Let's move on to a decanter style that I'm actually using more and more of. I learned about this decanter actually from my brother-in-law who has one of these, and it's a really nifty little decanter slash wine tool. A lot of wines really just need a little bit of aeration to them to really open up and start expressing themselves. Apologize for the dogs barking. They just need some air. They don't need to sit for long periods of time. They just need to gurgle around a little bit, get some oxygen to them, and then they're good to go. What this does, and this is by, I believe the company is called Menu, but I'll link it up on the site, this exact one. What it does is you put this on top of the bottle, you flip the bottle, and what happens is the wine makes its way down the neck on the sides of the bowl and makes its way into the bowl here. So really, this is a tool that I find, I'm not huge on wine tools, but this is certainly one that I will wreck. This is one that it gets the air to the wine. When it's down in the bowl, you don't need to leave it in there. You just flip it back over. The wine goes right back into the bottle. Honestly, a lot of the wines that you see me taste on the site have gone through this, because what I like to do is just get some air to them and then get them back into the bottle so that you guys can see the label like I always do, and hopefully they're expressing themselves nicely just from that slight bit of aeration that we've done to them. So definitely wreck this tool here. Let's talk about this. Probably have not seen one of these in a restaurant. Well, actually, you probably have seen one of these in a restaurant. Reason being is this is a old glass carafe from a French press. Before I realized that you need a metal French press in order to keep your liquids hot. So I repurposed this into a decanter. So why is this? Why did I repurpose this into a decanter? This is a perfect decanter for wines that kind of find their way in between the first two styles of decanting that we talked about. So wines that they don't really need to sit, and they don't really need to be gurgled a whole lot. This is a good decanter if you're having like people over to the house. You don't want to mess with all the decanters. You know that as soon as you open a bottle of wine, it's probably the majority of it is going to get poured into glasses and not sit for a long period, but you want to get some air into it, right? So literally every bottle of wine will benefit from air, from at least pouring it out of the bottle and into this, something like this, something very basic like this. And even if you pop it, pour it, and then this is being used to fill people's glasses with, just that little bit alone for every bottle of wine will be beneficial. So that's why I keep this guy on hand. If I have people over to the house, if I'm popping a bottle of wine maybe it's a natural wine that just has some volatile kind of aromas and stuff like that need to blow off, which they certainly blow them off just by pouring them out, that's what I use this for. So that's that. Finally, we've got the Zalto decanter here. So this is definitely the most expensive decanter I own. It's not completely necessary, but the reason I wanted to have it here in the video was to highlight a different shape. So you'll notice this one, especially in comparison to this one's tall, kind of thin. This one, short, very wide. So what do you use this decanter for? This is the style of decanter that you would use for your big, complex, expensive wines. Expensive decanter, expensive wines, not always necessary, but what I use this for is, you'll notice it has a lot of surface area. Wines in this guy only come up to about right here if you pour a full bottle. The rest of that headspace is used just for getting air to that wine. So your big, complex Burgundies, your Bordeaux, your Napa Valley Cabs, your Côte Rôtis and Northern Rhones, you want to pour those into a decanter like this to get as much air to them as possible, so that those complex and nuances and aromas and flavors can really start to come out of the wine, and you can really start to appreciate those expensive bottles. If I'm going to spend $100+ on a bottle of wine, I want to make sure that it's had the proper amount of decanting time, at least 2 hours, 2 to 6 hours in some instances, so that I can taste everything. I want to taste every bit of that 100 bones. I want to taste every bit of that money that I put into that wine, because if you're not treating it properly, you're not getting the full value out of it. And for me, that's just like throwing money away. I want to be able to taste the wines the way that they are best expressed, and some of those wines will be in that state after 2 or 3 hours of decanting, at least. So get yourself a decanter like this style, not exactly, it doesn't have to be the Zalto, but this shape and style of a decanter will help those big, bold complex wines open up for you and really be just a delight. Other than that, I would say that if I were to recommend one style of decanter for everyone, I would go with something like this. Because any wine that you open, unless it's something that's really old and really fragile, will benefit from at least 30 minutes of decanting. And I would say that's what I use this guy for the most. Almost every wine that I open here at the house, it gets opened, gets poured into here, I let it sit for 30 minutes while I'm kind of getting acclimated to being back home, and then I start pouring it into the glass. So that would be the guy I would go with. Again, don't want to go too deep into the actual decanting process, because really that comes with more knowledge of wine and more understanding of the different types of wines and the amount of time that each one would need to decant. But I'm going to do a good job, I think, or I'm going to try and do a good job of letting you guys know what I think when I do wine reviews, putting them on the site, and talking a little bit about what I think the amount of decanting time is necessary for those wines. So, I think that touched on it. I think we knocked out some good stuff here. Thanks for coming to my house today, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.